Good morning, students. Welcome to our online class. This is your third period, and the subject is social science. Students, in the previous period, we have started the civics part of class 10th social science. In that civics part, we have started chapter 2, that is federalism. And in that period, we have studied about what forms of governments or what form of system was adopted in Belgium country, which is an European country, and what form of government was adopted in Sri Lanka, which is an Asian country. In that period, we have studied about what is the meaning of federalism, what is federation, and what is the meaning of federalism. So I have given the definition in that period. We have also studied that what are all the differences between a unitary form of government and a federal form of government. Some differences I already shared to you. The same way we have studied about the features of federalism. What are the features of federalism? Around 7 features we have studied. 7 features of federalism we have studied in the previous period. Now today, in this period, through this video, I will teach you some more topics from the same chapter, federalism. I'll begin this video or I'll begin this class with the last feature of federalism. What is the last feature of federalism? That is like this. A federal system is always having a dual objectives. There are dual objectives in federalism, or dual objectives are found in federalism. The first main objective is to safeguard and promote unity of the country. The first objective of federalism is to safeguard and to promote unity of the country. And the second objective is to accommodate the regional diversity. The first objective of federalism is to safeguard and to promote the unity of the country. And the second important objective is to accommodate the regional diversity in that country. So these are the dual objectives of federalism. Therefore, 2 aspects are crucial for the institutions and practice of federalism. There are 2 crucial aspects are there for what? The institutions and practice of federalism. Government at different levels. In federalism, there are more than one form of government. Sometimes there may be more than 2 forms of governments. Governments at various levels are found in a federation or a federalism system. So what is telling here? Governments at different levels, state level, central level, local level. So the governments of different levels should agree to some rules of power sharing. So in a federal country, when the government is found at various levels, then each level or all the levels should come to a common agreement regarding the sharing of powers. They should also trust each other. Both the levels of government or all the levels of government should trust each other and would abide by its part of the agreement. Now, an ideal federal system has both aspects. An ideal federal system is always having the following aspects. One is the mutual trust. The mutual trust and agreement to live together. The mutual trust and the agreement to live together are the two important features that should be found in an ideal federal system or in a federation. Clear, students? Now, the exact balance of power at various levels, say for example India, the exact balance of powers between the central and the state governments, the exact balance of powers between the central and state governments varies from one federation to another federation. That means the power sharing, the exact sharing of power between the central government and the state government in a federal state, in a federal country, varies from one federation to other federation. There are number of federal form of governments are there. There are number of federal countries are there. But the exact power sharing between the central government and the state governments varies from one federation to another federation. This balance of power depends mainly upon the historical context on which the federations were formed. I mean, the balance of power between the center and the state varies from one federation to other federation, and it mainly depends upon on what basis, on what historical grounds that federation has been formed. There are two, now listen students, very important point, which will be asked in the examination in the form of question answer. So please listen to me carefully. There are two kinds of routes. Ways. There are two kinds of routes and ways which federations have been formed. There are two methods, two ways, two routes through which federations in all over the world have been formed. So what are the two routes? What are the two ways through which the federations all over the world have been formed? So number one, the first one is coming together federation. The first form is coming together federation, and the second one is holding together federation. So coming together federation and holding together federation are the two different types of federations. So these are the types of federations that are found in the contemporary world. So the first one, what I told you, that is coming together federation. This coming together federation involves independent states. When some independent states coming together voluntarily, I mean voluntarily. Okay, so once again, the first, that coming together federation, this route, this way involves some independent states coming together. Some independent states coming together on their own, I mean voluntarily, on their own, to form a bigger unit. Whenever some small or big individual states voluntarily by their own will come together, will join together to form a bigger unit, so that by pooling sovereignty, sovereignty means what? Independent power. By pooling the sovereignty and retaining identity, they are pooling their sovereignty, they are giving up their sovereignty. At the same time, they are retaining their identity. By pooling their sovereignty and at the same time they are retaining their identity, they can increase their security. I mean, whenever some independent states will voluntarily, by their own, will come together to form a bigger unit, pooling their sovereignty, at the same time retaining their identity, okay, to increase what? Their security, then such a type of federation are known as, or such a type of federations are known as coming together federations. or coming together federation. Clear, students? Whenever some independent states, some small states will come together by their own, voluntarily, pooling their sovereignty, at the same time retaining their identity, okay, to increase their security, then such a type of federation which are formed can be called as coming together federations. Now I'll give some examples of coming together federations. For example, here United States of America, USA, United States of America was formed with this method only. Some nearly 50 states, they came together voluntarily. They pooled their sovereignty by retaining their identity to increase their security, and they formed the federation. So US is the first example. Second one, Switzerland, which is a European country, small country. Switzerland, the capital is Bern. So that is another example. The same time, Australia, the island continent. So USA, Switzerland and Australia, these are the three examples of coming together federations. I mean, they are formed due to combination of several independent states. In Australia also divided into number of states. If you see the Australian continent, some political boundaries are there. Okay, now in the first in this first category of federation, I mean, this is the first category of federation. This is the first category of federation that is coming to the federation. All constituent states usually have equal powers. All the states. Say for example, in USA there are 50 states are there. They join together. They formed into federation. But all the 50 states are having equal powers, irrespective to their size. All are having equal distribution of powers. All the states are having equal powers, sharing equal powers, and are strong and are stronger because they become strong. They share equal powers and they become very strong because they are united. Okay. Now, the second form of federations are what? Holding together federations. How they are formed? Listen. The second route is where a large country, a very big country, when a very big country decides to divide its power between the constituent states and the national government. That means whenever a very big country decides what? To divide its power. To divide its power between the constituent states and the national government or against the central government, then such a type of federations are called what? Holding together federations. I repeat, the second route of federations is what? Holding together federation. Under this type of federations, when a very large country, when a big country will decides to divide its power between the constituent states and the national government, that is called central government, okay, then such federation is called what? Holding together federation. These federations are these constituent states usually and the national. Example I am giving. What are the examples of such holding together federations? For example, India. Take our India. India is a very large country in terms of area and all, in terms of our population, also huge population. And in our country, it was decided that the powers are being distributed between the constituent states and the national government. So in our country, the central government, they have their own powers, and all the 28 states, they are having their own powers. So powers are being distributed by the Constitution of India. So India is the best example I can say. India, Spain and Belgium. So India, Spain and Belgium, these are the three countries which comes under the holding together federations. They are formed by holding together. These countries, divided their power between the constituent states. I mean, they decided to divide the power between the constituent states and the national government. Okay. Now in this way, in this second category, I mean this holding together federation, in the second category, the central government, I mean the union government, central government, union government, national government, all are synonyms. Here central government, union government or national government, all are synonyms, these words are. So in this holding together federation, the central government tends to be more powerful, okay, more powerful, such as, and also the states, here states are having independent power. Every state is having independent power. They are not depending upon the central government. Though they are related, but they are having independent, your states are also having independent power. The central government is having independent power, that to having more power. Similarly, the state governments also having independent power. These states no need to, these constituent units, constituent states, no need to depend upon the central government. They have their own independent power. They rule their states by their own governments. Okay. Very often, what we have seen, very often different constituent units. Sometimes what will happen, some constituent units, I mean some states, here constituent units means what? Some states. They're demanding more power. Sometimes they demand more power for the development of the state. So whenever any such state, whenever any such constituent units or states demand for more power, then more power of autonomy, I mean more power is given to such states for the development of the states. So what is said here, very often different constituent units of the federation have unequal powers. I mean, see, here Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Kerala, all the states, do you think all the states are having equal powers? No. Though they are having their independent power, but the powers of all the constituent units in this holding to the federation are not equal. Some states are having more powers, some states are having less power. The best example I am telling, for example in UP, the number of Lok Sabha seats are more, the number of Rajya Sabha seats are more. Mizoram, the number of Lok Sabha seats are less, and the number of Rajya Sabha seats are less in the parliament. So this is the best example to show that the powers of the constituent units are not equal. Okay. Sometimes some states, as I told you, they demand for more power, and whenever they demand for more power, so based on the constitution, rules and regulations, they are allotted some more power for the development of the states. At the same time, some states, some constituent units, they are having some special powers also. They are having some special powers. For example, in our country, in the northeastern states, some states are given some special powers for the development of those areas, those states. Similarly, Jammu and Kashmir. Earlier, Jammu and Kashmir is having some special status. Article 370 was in practice there, but today it is not there. It was cancelled. Now, Jammu and Kashmir, the state was partitioned into two parts. One is Kashmir and second is Ladakh, and both were created into what? Union territories. And union territories are always under the control of the central government. I mean, the central government have direct control over all the union territories. Okay. Now, moving to our next topic, that is what makes India a federal country. I mean, what features are there in India? What are the features that are there in India so that we can say India is a federation or a federal country? How can you prove that India is a federal country? That is the question. So what makes India a federal country? That is the second topic. Now, what is it here? We have earlier seen how small countries like Belgium and Sri Lanka face many problems in managing diversity. Belgium, there is also diversity. German people, French people, Dutch people are there. In Sri Lanka also, the Sinhalas, the Indian Tamils, the Sri Lankan Tamils are there. Lot of diversity is there. They faced many problems, but they managed. Belgium managed. Sri Lanka managed through majoritarianism. Belgium managed through division of powers, but they managed. What about, see, Sri Lanka is a small country. Belgium is also a small country in Europe continent. But what about a vast country like India? What about a vast country like India where there is a lot of diversity is there? Number of religions are there. Number of languages are there. Number of castes are there. Lot of diversity is there. And that is a vast country in area. So India is having a lot of diversity with so many languages, so many religions, and so many castes are there. And so many regions are there. What are the power sharing arrangements that are found in a country like India? That we have to see. Let us begin with our constitution. India emerged as an independent country. You know, India emerged as an independent country in the year 1947, 15th August 1947. Now, this this month only, on 15th August on Saturday, we are celebrating our 74th Independence Day. So, our country India got independence on 15th August 1947. India became independent. Okay. And we became independent after painful and bloody partition. When our country was partitioned into two parts, when united India, when the combined India was partitioned, it was partitioned on the basis of a lot of pains, a lot of bloodshed was there throughout the country. But it was partitioned on the basis of Lord Mountbatten plan. Based on Lord Mountbatten plan, it was partitioned. And two countries were formed. United India was partitioned into two, and two countries are formed, namely India, and second is what? Pakistan. Okay. Soon after independence, several princely states, actually when we got independence, at that time, some princely states were also there. These princely states are what? Kingdoms, independent kingdoms. They are in India, Indian subcontinent, but they accepted the rule of, they accepted the British control, but the kings ruled their kingdoms independently. That means these princely states, they are not directly politically controlled these states. Actually, they occupied these states. They are brought under British control, but the kings of those kingdoms, they urged the British government that they will continue their own rule, king's rule. But at the same time, since they were brought under British control, they will pay yearly tribute. They agreed to pay the yearly tribute to the British government. So when the Britishers decided to leave our country, when they decided to give up our country independence, at that time, they asked all the union territories, they asked all these princely states that whether they will join with Indian Union or whether they will join with Pakistan. So that was the proposal kept by the British government before the princely states, whether they will unite with India or unite with Pakistan. So many princely states, they joined, some joined with India, some joined with Pakistan. But still there are some union states, princely states which have not showed interest to be the part of both the countries. They wanted to rule independently. Now you may ask, what are those princely states? That is Junagadh. Junagadh is a princely state in Gujarat. Similarly, that Jammu and Kashmir, that Kashmir, Maharaja of Kashmir, that is also one princely state. And the third one is the Nizam of Hyderabad's princely state. So these states have not showed their interest to join either in Indian Union or Pakistan. Later on, they were also included and became the part of our country, India. How they became, that we'll read in some other lesson. Through police action, through voluntarily, through people's demand, they were added. Okay. Different regions are there. For example, Nizam of Hyderabad was included in Indian Union in 1948 through police action. Okay, now. So soon after independence, several princely states. Now the question is this, how many princely states were there at the time? 565. Some books it mentioned 560, but actually 565 princely states were there. Okay. Now, they became the part of our country. And most of the princely states, they became the part of our Indian Union. Some went to Pakistan also. But 3 states remained independent. Okay. Now, the constitution, but after 1940, okay, or after 1948, in 1940, 1948, these states also, these princely states also became the part of Indian Union. Okay, through various methods. So the constitution declared when the princely states also added, when the princely states also joined in our Indian Union, then in our Indian constitution it was mentioned, Indian constitution written by what? The drafting committee, chairman and its members, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and its members. So when they drafted the Indian constitution, in Indian constitution number of articles are there, number of schedules are there. So the very first article, remember, the very first article, in the very first article it was mentioned that India is a union of states. In the very first article of Indian constitution, it was mentioned that India is a union of states. That means our country India was formed with the combination of so many states. With the combination of so many states, with the union of so many states, our country India was formed. Okay. So the constitution declared India as a union of states in the very first article. Although it did not use the word federation. See, though our country is called union of states, and whenever a country is formed with the union of states, it is called federation. But nowhere in India it was mentioned that India is a federation. Nowhere the word is used federation. The word federation was not used anywhere in the Indian constitution. Okay, remember that one. Though India is a union of states, in the very first article of Indian constitution it was mentioned that India is a union of states. Our country is formed with the combination of many states. But nowhere it was mentioned, nowhere in Indian the constitution mentioned about the word federation. Although it did not use the word federation, the Indian Union is based on the principles of federation. But our union was based upon the principles of federation. Let us go back to the 7 features. We have studied the 7 features of federalism. Let us go back. So let us go back to all the 7 features of federalism mentioned above. We can see all these features apply to the provisions of Indian constitution. Okay, the constitution originally provided for a 2-tier system or 2-tier system of government in India. According to our Indian constitution or according to the written statement in our Indian constitution, in our country there are 2 tiers of government, TIER, 2 tiers of governments. Okay, so originally it was mentioned 2 tiers of government only in our Indian constitution, that we have 2 tiers of form of government, that is union government and state government. The union government, first tier, union government, or what we call that central government. I told you union government, central government, national government, all are same. So the first tier government is what? Union government or national government or central government, which represent the union of India. I mean the entire nation. The union government is meant for the entire nation, for the entire country. And the state governments, the second tier is what? The state governments. And the state governments are meant for the respective states. Later what happened? Later a third tier of federalism was added in the form of panchayats and municipalities. So one more tier was added, and this was added according to Article 73rd. According to Article 73rd, remember, according to Article 73rd, this third tier of government was also added in our Indian constitution through an amendment, through a change. And the third form of government is what? That is panchayat governments or municipalities. These are called local self-governments. So panchayats and municipalities will come under local self-governments. So one more tier was added. So today we are having 3 tiers of governments. But initially we had only 2 tiers of governments. That is central government and state governments. Later one more tier was added, that is called local governments. As in any federation, these different tiers enjoy separate jurisdiction. That means every government is having their own limits, their own jurisdiction, their own levels. For example, the central government means what? Its jurisdiction is what? The entire nation, entire country. The state government means what? Their jurisdiction is within the state. They work within the state. All the rules are worked within the state. All the rules are practiced within the state. And the local government, the third tier is what? Local level. Rural local self-government is what? Village level. mandal level or block level or Jilla level. Similarly, in urban areas, urban self-governments, that is municipalities and municipal corporations, I mean towns and city levels. So every government, all the three types of governments, they're having their own jurisdictions, their own limits of work. Their laws will be implemented within their jurisdiction, within their levels. Okay. The constitution. Now the question arises, sir, who decided this jurisdiction? Who decided the powers? Who decided the jurisdiction of central, state and local governments? And who distributed the powers between central, state and local governments? Everything was mentioned in the Indian Constitution. It is our Indian Constitution that clearly mentioned the distribution of powers, the division of powers between the central, state governments. Okay. And from state governments, some power was given to the local self-governments or local self-government institutions. The Constitution clearly provided a threefold distribution of legislative powers. I mean, our Indian Constitution, as I told you, the Indian Constitution clearly decided or demarcated the distribution of powers between all the three tiers of government or all the three levels of government. Okay. One is for union government, some powers are given to union government, some powers are given to state government, and some powers are given to local government. Now, these powers are distributed based on three lists, LISTS lists. So, the Indian Constitution have distributed or demarcated the powers between the central government and state government and local governments. Okay, are distributed on the basis of three lists. What are those three lists? Number one, the central list. The central list, which is called union list. Here, central list is also called what? Union list. Second is state list. And one more list is there, that is called concurrent list or concurrent list. Concurrent list. So, based on these three lists, that is union list, state list, on concurrent list or concurrent list, the powers are distributed by the Indian Constitution. Okay. Now, the union list. In this union list, there are some subjects, there are some departments on which only central government or union government alone can make rules and regulations. Based on the union list, there are some departments, there are some subjects. I mean, the Indian Constitution have given some subjects in the central list or union list, and only the central government or union government alone have right to make the rules and regulations. I mean, the central government is exclusively having the right to make laws, rules from the central list. Now you may ask, sir, what are those departments or what are those subjects? For example, railways. In railways, only central government have right to make the laws. Defense of the country, national defense of the country, the defense department, central government have right to make the laws. Okay, similarly, at the same time, foreign affairs, foreign policies, central government have right to make the laws, foreign affairs. Similarly, banking. In banking, the banking department, the rules and regulations are made by the central government. Communications. In the communications department also, the central government is having exclusively rights to make the rules and regulations. Similarly, currency. This is very, very important. Currency, notes, coins, etc. So, on the currency also, money, monetary, fiscal, the union government have the right to make the laws. I mean, they have right to introduce new currency. They can declare any currency as not legal tender or legal tender. They may print new currency. They can introduce new notes. That rights is only exclusively possessed with the central government, which comes under union list. So, defense, railways, foreign affairs, communication, banking, currency, these and many more are there. Many more are there. Around 60 plus subjects are there, which comes under union list. Next. So I told you, in union list, only central government have right to make the laws. Clear. Next. Coming to state list. In state list, again there are some subjects are there, there are some departments are there, in which the state government have exclusive rights to make the laws. I mean, all the state governments, they're having the exclusive right to make the laws on those subjects, on those departments which are mentioned in the state list. Now, what are the subjects? Yes, subjects like police, I mean law and order, police. We are telling now, Chhattisgarh police, MP police, Gujarat police, Delhi police. So every state government have a right to make the laws on the police. Okay, state governments have exclusive right to make rules and regulations regarding to the police, law and order. Similarly, trade, I mean business, commerce, trade, commerce, police, agriculture. On agriculture also, I mean agriculture comes under state list, trade comes under state list, commerce comes under trade list, state list. So on agriculture also state government is having the right to make the laws. Similarly, irrigation, agriculture, irrigation, police, trade, commerce, and many more are there. So on these subjects, only state governments alone have right to make the laws. For example, on agriculture, the central government will not make any laws. On trade and commerce, the central government will not make any laws. Similarly, the state governments have no right to make any laws on railways or defense. I mean, they have their limits clearly demarcated. Now coming to another one, that is concurrent list. In concurrent list, also there are around 45 plus subjects are there in concurrent list. Now the question is this. So those subjects which are mentioned in the concurrent list, who is having the right to make the rules and regulations or laws? So generally in concurrent list, as I told you, there are 45 plus subjects are there. On the subjects, both central government and state government both have rights to make the laws. Both governments, central government and state government, both governments have right to make the laws on central government and state government, on the concurrent list. Both have right to make the laws which on subjects which are mentioned in the concurrent list. Now what are those subjects are there? For example, here education. On education subject on which central government can make the laws, state government also make the laws. Similarly, forest. Similarly, trade unions, formation of trade unions. Similarly, marriage and divorce. Similarly, adoption and succession. Marriage and divorce, adoption and succession, criminal law. Okay. Similarly, forest. Similarly, trade unions, and many more subjects are there. Education, many more subjects are there on which both central government and state government have right to make the laws on these concurrent list subjects. Now, whenever any challenge comes, suppose central government and state government both are having conflicts to make law on a particular subject which comes under concurrent list. Suppose there is one subject, say for example trade unions or education or marriage and divorce. So take one subject, and on the subject now both central government and state government both are having conflicts to make the laws, that I will make the laws or I will make the laws. Suppose both governments having conflicts. In that case, what we will do? So in that case, here what I mentioned here, whenever any challenge will come between central government and state government for making laws which are comes under concurrent list, then always the central government will be given upper hand. Always the central government will be given upper hand, first preference. So whenever there will be any conflicts between the central and state governments for making rules and regulations on a particular subject which comes under that concurrent list, then first preference will be given to central government. Now, students, there are many other subjects are there which are not included in either in central list or union list, state list or concurrent list. There are some subjects are there which are not comes under these three lists. For example, IT, information technology. It is not included in any of the three lists at that time. Okay. So why? Because when our country got independence at that time, this information technology was not developed. This department was not there. This field was not there. So hence it was not mentioned at that time. Later on this was developed, this subject was developed, this department was developed. So there are like that some subjects are there, 18 subjects are there, which are not mentioned in either central list or state list or country list. Now the question is this, sir, these subjects are called which subjects? Then I will tell you, these are called residual subjects. These are called residual subjects. And on these residual subjects, only central government have right to make the laws. Those subjects which neither comes under union list, state list or country list, those subjects are called residuary subjects. And on the residual subjects, the central government, I mean union government, have exclusive right to make the laws. So this thing you have to remember. So students, this is around 40 minutes video. I am keeping up to here only. So this is the end of our second period social science. Hope you have understood some concepts. I suggest all my students to read the textbook line to line and word to word for better understanding of the concepts. Students, after this video, I will send some notes. I will send some notes on the subject federalism. So please write down in your notebooks. Thank you. Take care.